webinar is now being recorded and closed captions have been activated for accessibility accommodations. We do ask that you guys are muted and please keep yourself on mute while you're not speaking. Following this webinar, we do have a brief survey on your experience. We'd love to know how valuable and informative you found it. Lastly, if you have any questions throughout this webinar, please do not hesitate to use the chat feature. At the end of the presentation, there will be an opportunity to ask questions either via chat or through the mic. Now, today we'll be discussing the impact of civil unrest and how businesses and organizations can prepare and respond to civil unrest that could occur really from any event within their communities. Our goal today is to provide you with valuable insight and practical information that you can apply to safeguard your properties and communities while minimizing risks. Without further ado, I would like to jump into our program and introduce our speakers for today. Joining us from the Active Assailant Interdisciplinary Working Group, we have Ms. Jennifer Gray. Also joining us, we have Julie Roberts and Millie Kellogg-Smock. Forgive me if I mispronounced that last name, from the Private Sector Emergency Management Association. Ladies, thank you again for taking time this morning to speak with us. And I'd like to kind of give you guys an opportunity to do some brief introductions. Jennifer, would you like to start?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Like Christiana said, my name is Jennifer Gray. I'm here representing the state of Maryland's Active Assailant Interdisciplinary Work Group, which is a mouthful. Looking forward to hearing the first part of the presentation today, and then I'll be going over some resources that are available to all of you. And thanks for having us.
Great. Thank you. Julie or Molly?
I'll jump in. So first off, sorry, my voice is still not back. It's been about 2 weeks now. I'm hoping it's back soon. I also have to apologize. So I'm at a conference. I'm at the Women in Trucking event this week. I'm sitting currently in a random ballroom. So happy to be here. Thank you, Christina. So I am the president and founder of the Private Sector Emergency Management Association, as we refer to it as PSEMA. And so we'll get into this a little bit more after we do the introductions as we kick off our discussion on civil unrest. So Christina, thank you for the invitation today.
Not a problem. Thank you for joining. Molly, I saw your name pop in here. I know you're around, so if you want to jump in as well.
Sure. Hi, I'm Molly Kellogg-Smock. You didn't picture my last name. It's totally okay. And I've been working with Julie with PSEMA for about 2 years now, and I take care of all of the communications. So everything forward facing that you see through PSEMA, I work on, as well as a lot of content and presentations and all the things. So we work in tandem on a lot of things. I'm here as her backup today. So I'll let her do most of the speaking.
Awesome. Thank you. Again, thank you ladies all for taking the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into our session today with a little icebreaker. If I have to, endure being on this public spotlight, so do you guys. We're going to make this interactive. So this is going to be a small constitutional refresher, and you guys can use either the chat feature or you can hop on mic and, let us know through there. Can anyone tell me what the First Amendment actually protects? I'm curious for this.
Freedom of speech.
Okay, great. Anyone else?
Religion.
Okay, we're ahead of the game already. I know Christine is not the only one in this webinar, guys. I know it's 10 a.m., but let's...
Also freedom of assembly.
There we go, Eddie. Okay, I see religion, free press, right to assemble. Okay, you guys are on it. All right, thank you. So most of you guys are correct. The First Amendment protects the 5 fundamental freedoms, which is, yes, the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, the freedom of press, the freedom of assembly, and the freedom to petition the government. How dare us? These freedoms are essential to the democratic society and considered fundamental rights for all Americans. While they are all equally important, today we're going to focus a little bit more on the freedom of assembly. This freedom allows people to gather peacefully to protest, demonstrate, or express their views. Peacefully being that operative word. Now, while most what most demonstrations, most protests, they are in fact very peaceful. History has shown us that that's not always the case. And in some civil gatherings, that same civil freedom can quickly turn into a situation where protective measures need to be engaged. Civil unrest refers to a situation where a portion of society will gather, engages in public disorder, often due to dissatisfaction with social, economic, or political conditions. And this can manifest in a lot of different forms, including protests, riots, strikes, and insurrections. We are not going to touch on that today. The underlying causes of these civil unrests can be complex and multifaceted, encompassing issues like economic inequality, political corruption, social injustice, or historical grievances. One of the most important things in navigating any event is situational awareness. And with that, I'm actually going to bring Julie and Molly up. Julie is going to give us some information on PACEMA and some of the private sector tools and resources that can help with that. Julie?
Sorry, trying to click on the wrong unmute button.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can get my presentation up real quick. So while I'm doing that, I just want to let everyone know a little bit about PACEMA for those of you who are not aware. So we are a 501c6 trade association that was started 3 years ago, and it was started after Hurricane Ida. Prior to this, I have been in 2 different governments. So I served in the federal government twice, and I worked for the state of Florida. And so when I was in the state of Florida, I built out a public-private office. I left in 2016, and when I moved back to Texas, started my own consulting business, I quickly realized that we needed a trade association that is for the private sector. And so it is focused on business and industry, trade associations, nonprofits, and our government partners. And we come together when disasters are happening to solve business-to-business problems. But then when things are not happening, we also focus on just the public education and getting together and building out that network. So a couple weeks ago, we rolled out a presentation, which I'm going to show here, which was related to the election. So we stood up our new Teams-based platform called Pratis. And so you'll see us talk a little bit about it here. And we can use Pratis to share information because it's Teams-based. You also have all the channels. And then Pratis itself is a situational awareness tool. And so we built this leading into the election last week and did a presentation last Monday. And just in the event that should there have been civil unrest following the election results. Good thing I said at the time, I hope I built this. We don't need it, and we have not needed it. But the information that we pulled together is relevant to any type of civil unrest that could happen. A lot of this is based on what we saw in 2020. The George Floyd situation happened, and there was a number of civil unrest cases around the country. And so we just want to be able to arm our partners and our members with some information on that. So I'm going to walk through this quickly. I have not screen shared on here before, so we're going to make sure I can get this to move. Let's see. Christina, do you know how to actually, let me see if I can get this, maybe to move this is what I was trying to do. Has anybody ever screen shared on?
I can see your presentation.
I can't get it to advance. Let me see if I do it from here. Are you seeing it now?
Yes.
Okay. All right, perfect. So what we started here is that it is equipping our members and our partners with the real-time situational awareness, our powerful tool that really helps provide that information should something come up. It's real-time data and information sharing. So using our Teams side of the platform, it gives people an opportunity, our members, to have that chat feature. And we've gone in and we set it up related to different topics. So for the election, it was based on the swing states, the expected swing states, and where there could have been some of the results that could have been contested. And so we built it that way. We also have weather and event integration. So through Pratis, being able to identify weather patterns that were happening, weather service alerts, being able to provide that information in real time. And then also any of the election related updates that would have been tied to that should there have been something on or following the election day. In a civil unrest event now, we would take this same concept, but we would just tailor those types of regions into something that was going on in West Coast, Central America, central part of the country, etc. So many of you on here are in government roles, I'm sure, or are familiar with the FEMA lifelines. We have a little bit of a different approach because private sector, business and industry do not necessarily align with the lifelines that you may see when it comes to our government partners. And so we really focus on building that business resilient lifeline. And so you'll see here, we try to organize more around topics and then figure out kind of where our partners and our members tie into each of these different 8 lifelines. Now, some of them may be in multiple, and some of them may not fit into one of these. And if that's the case, then we want you guys to work with us and help us understand where we would need to expand that. And so you'll just see a few, and most of them will look familiar, employee safety and security, supply chain. That is a key thing, no matter what type of an incident is going on. You've got to have that, making sure that the supply chain and logistics are stable. Facility operations, hazard material, water and sanitation. So those are just some of how we at PACEMA are organizing ourselves around the lifelines. And please, if somebody has a question, if you want to jump in and raise your hand or put it in the chat, and Molly and I can answer that question. And we're also welcome to follow up with anybody that has questions after. So for the event, for the election last week, we went in, and this is some of the checklists that we put together to really just help companies, help partners think about as you're planning. Many of you may already have checklists for every other type of incident. Have you thought about what happens if there is an incident in your downtown area and something's going on and you are a business or you work with your business partners? Have they thought about whether they need to open or close that location? I pick on Starbucks all the time because they're kind of on every street corner in America, especially downtown. And so therefore, having this information and thinking through, do we need to board up? Do we need to open? Do we need to close? Do we need to tell employees to go home? Do we need to stay open, but for first responders? And so we just developed, this is a planning checklist to help our partners go through and think about things now before there is an incident in your community that you may need to be able to activate and to respond to. JetBlue was telling us that in 2020, they recognized that their frontline workers may want to participate in the protest, in the demonstrations. And so they also provided them some information on, if you were going to do this, be safe. And this is what you need to think about. This is your plan if you want to put yourself into that, not into that situation, that's not the right word, but if you're going to go exercise that right, making sure you have a plan in case something happens, what you need to be able to do. This is also part of that checklist. And so this is in that business continuity, exercising existing notification and response plans. Have you thought about it for a civil unrest? So I think what we're talking about today is that First Amendment gathering. So those are normally planned protests. In a second, when I get through the presentation, I want to bring up a topic happening in Europe right now. So when we talk about business continuity, we're talking about those planned First Amendment gatherings, protests. And that's easier for businesses and our partners to plan for. But what happens, just like in 2020, when something happens in a community and people show up and protest? Unfortunately, in many communities, there was a lot of buildings destroyed, fires that were set, people that were killed. Because those were not planned protests, it's a little bit more difficult to coordinate. And so we want to make sure that people are thinking about your business continuity, your government continuity in that area, and also personal safety and understanding if your employees or your friends or family are going into an area where a protest could pop up, or God forbid, a riot, a more dangerous situation, making sure they understand what they need to think about, where they need to go, and how to get out of a situation if they don't want to be on. And so with that, so that is the end of my presentation on that. I do want to just show really quickly one other story. Let me just share that I think all of us are probably thinking about right now. So if you are following what's happening in Europe right now, I think it's sharing. Let's see. Do you see my tab?
Yep, you can see it. Okay.
So I don't know if anyone has paid attention over the last couple of nights. There's been some pretty major unrest happening in Amsterdam. It started around a soccer game, a football game. The Israeli soccer team was there playing in a tournament, and people then started attacking these Jewish fans. This hits home for me. I previously, under the Bush administration, served at the U.S. Embassy in the Netherlands. I lived in The Hague, but I worked really closely with the Dutch people. And the reason I bring this up is, I don't know how many of you are aware that in 25, we have FIFA games here in the United States, but more importantly, in 26, we have the World Cup coming to North America. As I have told people, it is like multiple Super Bowl games all at one time over 30 days in multiple locations. And so thinking through, as I keep reminding my FEMA friends here in Texas and other places, we have to think about it. You have the world coming to America. This is not a Super Bowl game. This is rabid fans that come in to support their countries. They react when something happens that they don't like. I'm not saying that what's happening in Amsterdam will happen here, but we all need to be paying attention to what is happening around the world as we start to plan for that. So PACEMA is already standing up with our partners a 2026 World Cup Pratis incident operation. And so we will be and supporting that. We are going to start pushing out information on Pratis, on teams. We're going to collect that information. And we're also going to be working with our partners. The state of New Jersey has joined as a state partner. I'm working with the city of Los Angeles. And so those are a couple of the locations that will have these games. And so we want to start planning now with our partners to think about what is it going to look like when you have fans from around the world coming into your communities. They're going to be in your bars and restaurants and inside these communities on a random Wednesday afternoon, and that restaurant may not have a plan for that, or have the fuel stations thought about extra fuel. What does that look like? And so we are starting to think about that from a gathering, not necessarily a civil unrest. However, we will be planning for it from a civil unrest environment in order to help our partners think about what happens when you have a mass amount of people that come into your community. So with that, I will pause, Christina, if anybody has any questions.
This is amazing, Julie. Thank you so much. And I do see that you actually have already dropped your contact information in the chat. So that way, if you guys have any additional questions or want to learn a little bit more about PACEMA, you can feel free to reach out to Julie. Looks like I did actually have one question from Christine. Julie, are you okay with the idea of us sharing the presentation that you presented
Yes.
already? Okay,
Yes.
So Christine, once everything is done, I'll grab a copy from Julie and I'll be able to send that out in our post event for you guys, okay?
And also, just so everybody knows, it's on our government side, it's local, state, federal, any partners on the government side. And we're also focused on small businesses. So if you work with small businesses, we have an agreement with the Small Business Association. We have an alliance, a strategic alliance with them. And so we don't just focus on the corporations. We also partner with our nonprofit partners. So I just want to put it out there. If anybody wants to join, everyone is welcome. If you want to join and your group cannot join, we do have an individual independent professional membership too. So just want to make sure I throw that out.
No, awesome plug. Thank you. And yes, Molly has also dropped in her information as well. So please connect with them. They have a great program, great platform, and clearly a lot of knowledge and resources to hand out. Now, to kind of piggyback off of that great information that Julie has provided, I do want to note that MDEM also does have a public situational awareness dashboard, MDash, that can be utilized during both those blue sky days and during any active situation. So I'm going to drop that link in there as well. Take a look at it. If you have any questions, you feel free to, send us emails. We're very responsive and happy to help in any way we can. I'd also like to point out that as a part of your preparedness practices, it is always a good idea to take a minute and pull out that insurance policy. Really comb through and understand what your coverages are so that you can make any necessary plans like the upcoming FIFA and World Cup games or adjustments. If you have any questions or concerns, it's the perfect opportunity to reach out to your provider. Now, our friends at the Maryland Insurance Administration weren't able to join us today, but if you have any additional questions or looking for resources, I'm also going to drop their information to their website. That also has a contact email for anything else you may need. Now, moving on. In times where things can get a little bit more critical, it's also important to have an alternative response measure. With that, I'd like to bring up Jennifer to talk about the Active Assailant Interdisciplinary Working Group, what it is, its history, its purpose, and the tools and resources it can provide. Jennifer?
Thank you. So yeah, I have both the pleasure of talking to all of you today, but it's also, I have, I guess, the more depressing part a little bit. This is kind of civil unrest goes wrong, right? And the elements here are closely tied. So while I'm obviously going to be speaking about active assailants specifically, just keep in mind a lot of the things that we're talking about here have kind of an all hazards nexus in a lot of ways. They're not just specific to active assailant. So a couple quick slides that I will start sharing. You can see them. Christiana, are they up for you? They're up for me. Okay, beautiful. Beautiful. So I like Christiana said, I'm just going to give you guys some quick history, do the extra click. So I am on the contract support team that supports the Active Assailant Work Group. I've been doing that since 2019. This is near and dear to my heart, though, because I am actually myself a former MDEM employee, and I also work for the State Department of General Services, and I live in Maryland. So working here is nice, and it's a good connection. The Active Assailant Work Group was convened actually in 2013, so been around for a hot minute, after the Washington Navy Yard shooting, if you guys remember that. And I think what's really important to point out is we went from an environment in the early 2010s of very little information being available. We all knew that kind of active assailant incidents were increasing, but guidance specific to planning for those types of incidents just wasn't out there. There was sort of a disconnect among emergency management and law enforcement partners, and we were trying to build those things. So we went from that environment to now there is an absolutely overwhelming volume of information available related to active assailant prevention, preparedness, training resources that are out there. So what we have done as a work group is, back in 2013, this work group actually wrote one of the first guidance documents that was available in the country for how to respond to active assailant incidents. As time has moved on, and there have been lots of other organizations that have worked on these things, we've sort of pivoted to trying to share information and reinforce and share resources that are out there from other reputable sources and create what we've made to be like kind of a curated resource library available to people. So my partner in crime here, Katie, is on with me. She's going to share a link to our website in the chat, and I'm going to walk you guys through just quickly what's available on that website for you guys, because I think you might not know that it exists. So if you go ahead and to the website, I think Katie will send you right to the resources tab. If you're interested, there's more background about the Active Assailant Work Group. There's more information about the group itself, but the resources tab is really where you'll want to take a peek at things. So we've got a lot of a lot of different ways to organize things because, like I said, there's a ton out here, and we've tried to kind of curate some of the best practices and things that we think make the most sense. So we've them bucketed into prevention and early intervention resources, and then we've got an entire section just on critical incident reviews. For my emergency management friends, this is where we have real world AARs. There are a ton of them out there. So they're organized by the location, the type of location where the event took place. So whether the event was at a special event, a house of worship, and so on. And you'll see as you click in here, some of them have multiple, right, from the same incident. They're AARs or critical incident reviews that were written by different organizations. So we've populated several of them here for you guys to be able to take a look at. Brian, I will get to that question in my next slide, actually. So there's a bunch of information here as far as critical incident reviews. And then if you scroll down further, we've got resources bucketed into different audience groups. So one of the things that we found, like I said, in the early 2010s, like there was no guidance. So we wrote some guidance, but then now we're starting to understand, okay, well, schools and universities have very different roles and responsibilities when it comes to prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery from these types of incidents than, let's say, a house of worship or an employer or a special event. And there's different organizations that have developed resources for each of these different groups. So if you click into any of these, you'll see they're organized in a couple different ways. So for houses of worship, we've got tons of planning and preparedness and some training and exercise types of events or types of resources. If you go into businesses and employers, we've got things that are broken down into prevention and into planning and some different types of hands-on training. The Active Assailant Work Group as a state level entity does not particularly endorse one type of training over another. This is something if you get into it, you'll see that there are different programs available that you can, some are free, some you have to purchase. We don't endorse one over another. We're just kind of sharing what's out there that we've seen people successfully use before. So that's just a very quick overview of kind of what's available to you guys out there. I will go back to the slides for a quick second. So in terms of how you can get involved, one of the things that we ask for constantly is the resource library is maintained by human beings. So we're not infallible, right? So if you're on there and you're poking around and there's a resource that you've used in practice that's not on there, please let us know. There's a way you can email us. I think there's also a form on the website. So we're always looking for resources and best practices. One of the other ways to get involved is tentatively in March 2025, the Active Assailant Work Group will be hosting a symposium. This is a one-day training event. We've done 2 or 3 of them. I think we've done 2 of them before. The last one was in 2022. They're usually very well attended. The call for speakers is now open. So Katie's going to share that call for speakers link in the chat in case anyone has ideas of things that would be good for our upcoming event. Our event is open to both government, non-governmental, private sector entities. And we're looking for presentations that kind of touch all aspects of active assailant preparedness, training, prevention, response, anything that you've worked on. The group is open to participation for government, private sector, nonprofits. They're governed by a charter. So there are some things in terms of like who's able to vote and whatnot. But if you have an interest in getting involved with the group, I have the email address for the group. You are more than welcome to shoot them an email about participating. They meet on a quarterly basis. And then there are subcommittees that kind of dive into some of the more specific things. So they've developed guidance documents when those are needed. One of the subcommittees is planning the symposium. We have a subcommittee that maintains the website. And then we also have a big focus on reunification and recovery from these types of incidents as well. So yeah, if you'd like more information or if this is a group that you'd like to participate in, certainly send an email to the Active Assailant inbox and we can help get you connected to the right people. So that's all I've got, Christiana. I'm happy to hang on if there's any questions.
You have been absolutely amazing. Thank you. And yes, we had the 2 questions already, so that you've already been answered. If you have any additional questions for Jennifer, she did drop her information and her contact information in the chat a little bit earlier. If you don't mind dropping it in again, that'd be great. But that way, you guys have a means to learn directly again about the working group, how you can be a part of it, any of the subcommittees, and the upcoming symposium. All right. Thank you again, Jennifer. And special thanks to Katie as well for the links. I did see those. All right. Now, moving on, I just want to touch base in. Yesterday, the Maryland Office of Resiliency launched a comprehensive resilience toolkit. Some of you might have actually gotten the emails and the newsletter. It is designed to provide local governments, state agencies, community leaders, businesses, and nonprofits with access to the resources needed to strengthen hazard resilience across Maryland. Now, this toolkit is a one-stop shop for resilience, information and resources that can help communities across the state adapt to and overcome a wide range of involving risks, from climate change to natural hazards, infrastructure challenges, and cybersecurity. By offering access to these resilient grant opportunities and best practices, the toolkit ensures that Maryland's unique communities, from the urban centers to the far western rural towns, can build stronger infrastructure and protect their environment and safeguard their people. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that information into the chat as well for you guys. And like I said, I will be sure to collect the presentations as well from Julie and Jennifer and get that out to you guys. We are rolling through. It is 10:34. Now, we are coming to a bit of a close into our time today, into today's webinar. But I do want to take a moment to once again thank our speakers today for their time and all of their valuable insight. You guys were amazing. And I do also want to say thank you to all of you guys for joining us today. I hope you found this webinar informative and valuable. Just a reminder, that survey will be coming out and I will be looking for responses. Thank you. It is 5 minutes at most to provide your feedback. In order for us to better serve you guys and prepare you guys for any active, events, situations, we really want a better understanding of what you need and what you find valuable. So until next time, I do thank you again, and I look forward to connecting with you all again. Stay safe and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina.
Bye.